I'm Thomas Morgan. I had talked a little bit about life here in the Overmountain settlements, us spending most of our time protecting our homes and our families and making a living for ourselves in this new land. And I talked about the war breaking out up north against the British, men taking a stand against them, against the king. So I would like for you to hear a little bit about what happened from a good friend of mine, Sparling Bowman, because he was there.
I'm Sparling Bowman. I understand you want to know a little bit about the war in the North. Well, I lived the war in the North. I was living in Washington County, Maryland when the war broke out, 73, 74. Wasn't much going on in our neck of the woods, and we didn't really care. We'd heard about Lexington and Concord and the shot heard around the world, but it didn't affect us until April of 75 when General Washington sent word to Colonel Cressup, our militia commander, that he wanted us to come to New York. We were surprised to hear that, considering Washington was known not to care much for the militia. But we spent 52 days on our way to New York, and before we got there, Colonel Cressup passed away. We arrived in New York and were assigned to Daniel Morgan's command, which became Morgan's Rifle Company. You see, we were good with these. Our duty while in New York was to pick off British officers. In fact, the British complained that British officers were being felled by men some 300 yards distant who could not be seen with the aid of a good glass. Following New York, we were sent up along the Hudson. We were climbing trees and again picking off British officers as Burgoyne made his way south. One British soldier wrote, "Those barbarians hang from the trees like monkeys as they pick off our officers." The next few months turned into a year, and we spent most of our time moving around like a calculated chess match between the two armies. We fought at Brandywine, a bloody mess in Pennsylvania. Then we were at Germantown. We thought we had won the day, but the British claimed the victory. Then we went into winter quarters at Valley Forge. I saw von Steuben come into Valley Forge. I saw the French alliance, and after a cold, hard, miserable winter with men dying and starvation, some of us whose enlistments were running out decided we were going to move south. We left Valley Forge, headed across the Overmountain country into western North Carolina. We were away from war. There was no war in the South. But in the North, changes was happening. British Parliament was not happy that the war hadn't been won and British rule reinstated. So they changed commanders. They sent Sir Henry Clinton. Clinton decided to launch what he called the Southern Strategy and send General Cornwallis, his best commander, to subjugate the South and to put all of those loyalists in the southern colonies into the British Army. As the Southern Strategy launched, Savannah fell to the British. Charleston fell, losing 5,500 men without a shot being fired. Cornwallis leashed his dogs of war upon the southern colonies. Patrick Ferguson, the commander of the left wing, sent a threat across the mountain that he would march his army across, hang our leaders, and lay waste with fire and sword. I had not planned on taking up the rifle again, but my dander was up as all as my neighbors, and I'd already fought the British, but we weren't going to take this threat lightly. We met at Sycamore Shoals, marched across the mountain. In that group, there was 30 or 40 other men who had come south that had fought in the north. We met up with Ferguson on Kings Mountain, and you know the story. We defeated the British there. We marched the prisoners away, and I got to thinking, I had left the war, and the war had come looking for me, so I went and found my old commander, Dan Morgan, rejoined the old 2nd Maryland, and fought at Cowpens. I'd helped defeat the left wing, and now I helped defeat the right wing. General Morgan rode off back to Virginia in retirement. I marched off with General Greene. We fought at Guilford Courthouse, followed Cornwallis north into Virginia, and I saw the British Army surrender at Yorktown. We marched back home, and I lived in peace here on the Camp Creek in what would become Greene County, eventually becoming Tennessee. So I hope I've answered your question about my time in the war in the North.